What's going on, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Columbus Wired post-game recap. I'm Andy Evans, and yes, I am standing here on the field after a huge Ohio State win where the third-ranked Buckeyes, now at 3-0, avoided a trampling by the Marshall Thundering Herd with a final score of 49-14. Although this was a weird game, and what I am going to talk about was this was a game of several firsts and seconds for the Buckeyes. Some good, some not so good, some bad. I should have just said some bad, some not, but not so good. I'm getting off track. I am going to talk about that, but what I'm not going to talk about from today's game is, a fumble that Lathan Ransom caused that was overruled by the refs, yet video evidence clearly showed that he recovered that fumble that he caused. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to go into Marshall's second touchdown. Yeah, second touchdown of the game. And of course, as indicated by the final score of 14 points for Marshall. Yeah, they not only scored one TD today, they scored two. I'm going to talk about that, but I'm not going to talk about the fact that their second touchdown of the game, clearly Elijah, Metcalf, he was a receiver for Marshall who caught the touchdown pass down here at the north end. Clearly his right foot was in the air when he caught the ball, and his left foot came down on the edge line, the back edge line of the end zone, and clearly was not a catch for a touchdown. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the Caden Curry ejection, where clearly he was not leading with the crown of his helmet, yet I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into all of that. But let's start here. And let me give you some stats. I know. I don't care if I screw up at this point. I'm just going to read everything off because I want to get the hell out of here. I'm kind of hungry. I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of sweaty. It is like literally 4 degrees as I stand here on this field. And as you can tell, the sun is absolutely beating in my face. And I think the entire stadium just heard that, at least probably some of the guys working over here that are now looking at me. So I am going to just pop off these stats and let you guys know exactly what happened in today's game. Once again, final score 49-14. It was a balanced attack by the Buckeyes, 569 total yards, 289 through the air, 280 on the ground, and there we go. My computer is back up. Quarterback Will Howard, 16 of 20 today, 275 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He also had 3 runs for technically a total of -2 yards, but he did have his second rushing touchdown today, which came in the second quarter on a T formation. Yeah, remember the old school full house, kind of not necessarily a full house backfield, but kind of the T set? Yeah, they lined up in that, and Will Howard scored on a 1-yard run. Speaking of scoring on runs today, the two-headed monster in the backfield, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, combined for 20 of the team's 31 carries today for 249 of those 280 rushing yards, and each had 2 rushing touchdowns. Quinshon, 14 carries, 173 yards. Trey, only 6 carries, but he made it count for 76 yards, which meant that both running backs today averaged over 12 yards per run. Emeka Egbuka, senior, out of Washington, right? Kind of been a little quiet this year. I mean, he had that kind of quasi-touchdown catch against Akron that was called back once again, that some would say was a very bad call by the refs, but we won't go into any of that. Led the team today with 5 catches, 117 yards, and 1 touchdown. Carnell Tate, and I'm walking this way to stay in the sun, stay in the sun, stay in the sun. There we go. Carnell Tate, second on the team with 4 catches. He was third in yards with a total of 64, and it was your boy, the true freshman, Jeremiah J.J. Smith, number 4, from Miami Gardens, Florida. Finished third on the team today with only 3 catches, but a total of 70 yards. And yeah, he had another banger of a touchdown catch. This was a 53-yarder in the third quarter, right down here. Catches the ball, nice little slant over the middle. And I mean to tell you, Will Howard led him perfectly. Bang, reeled it in, turned upfield, and escaped the leg tackle, was gone. 53 yards. But what may have been more impressive was Emeka Egbuka's 68-yard touchdown catch, which a majority of that was a run. In fact, I want to say probably about 63 yards of it. He caught almost like Jeremiah's touchdown against, was that Western Michigan? That was Western Michigan, that 70-yarder that Smith had. Emeka's was virtually the same thing, because he caught a little screen pass, Emeka did, off to the right side, and then he just kind of went over the middle of the field, and then he just went up the left side. And I mean, nobody touched him. He was absolutely gone. 68 yards, an absolute thing of beauty. The defense today, you might be asking, well, how did the defense do? Well, I'm going to tell you, kind of a balanced game by the Marshall offense. The Buckeyes allowed 264 total yards today, 139 through the air, 125 on the ground. However, this was the second game now. The defense did not force a turnover. They didn't force one last weekend against the Broncos. Running back A.J. Turner for the Thundering Herd led them with 32 yards, but it was running back Ethan Payne who had the team's lone rushing touchdown, which was a 1-yard run on the game's opening drive. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it, Buckeye Nation? Where Ohio State is allowing the opposing team to draw first blood, and today was no different. In fact, this was the second game of the season. Those first and seconds I was talking about just a few minutes ago. This was the second time this season that the Ohio State defense has allowed the opponent to score the first points of the game. Ethan Payne led the team with 9 carries, had a total of 31 yards. It was safety Lathan Ransom, Buckeye safety that is, that led the team with 8 tackles. He had 1 for loss and that forced fumble that we're not going to talk about. Also, Sonny Styles and second-team linebacker Arvell Reese had really good games. Sonny, 7 tackles. Arvell had 5, and Arvell a tackle for loss, which was a 2-yarder near the end of the first half. And so speaking of tackles for loss near the end of the half, let's talk about what happened to Caden Curry. So, and I said we're going to talk about firsts and seconds. This is what I'm now getting into, folks. So let's start with the defensive side of things, and let's start with defensive end Caden Curry. The junior got his first sack of the year today, an 11-yarder about midway through the second quarter. However, the very next offensive series for Marshall, another first happened to Caden Curry, where he got the first ejection of his college career on a questionable targeting call that, once again, if you go back and you look at the replay, he leans down. I mean, you'll have to judge for yourself. I'm personally saying that after I saw the replay, I'm like, are you kidding me? What, I mean, should we, should we just be playing tag football out here? Is that what we should be doing from here on out? Because that's kind of where I feel like we're going with the state of things in football. To watch him get ejected for a quote-unquote target on that was absolutely absurd. And I'm not saying that as a, Buckeye fan or a journalist who follows OSU and kind of being a one-sided thing. Truly, I think even Marshall fans would say the same thing. There are a lot of different college football fans out there that would say, no, that was absolutely absurd. So a couple of firsts there. Curry gets the first sack of the season. Then the very next offensive series, he gets his first ejection ever. So he had to sit out the entire second half, which means he should be good to go come next weekend when the Buckeyes take on Michigan State in East Lansing for their first road game of the season. Another first that occurred. Yes, Marshall running back Ethan Payne scored on the game's opening drive. Well, he scored a touchdown, not just a field goal. See, against Akron, they had given up 2 field goals in that game. Against Western Michigan, they pitched a shutout. But in today's game, they gave up 2 scores. So, yes, it was bound to happen. I mean, some of these stats, people obviously, take with a grain of salt. Some of these things were bound to fall at some point, right? Like Ohio State was not going to continue to pitch shutouts and keep opposing offenses out of the end zone for the entire year. But it happened, and it's kind of good. Hey, just get it out of the way. I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, like, good, you know what? Get it out of the way against Marshall. That way this defense knows what it feels to get a touchdown scored against them, right? Just get it the hell out of the way. Good, great, wonderful, grand. Now whenever they get scored on, they're going to feel not good or better, but at least they're going to know what it feels like, and they're not going to totally get down on themselves. However, this also was the first game of the season, which once again, this was not going to stand for the rest of the year. But it was the first time that they had allowed an opposing offense inside their red zone. Yeah, they had not allowed Akron nor Western Michigan inside their red zone at all. And Marshall not only scored a touchdown today, but got inside the red zone because, like I said, Ethan Payne scored on a 1-yard rush on the game's opening drive. So right there, Marshall came out and got inside Ohio State's red zone and scored on the opening drive a touchdown, something that Ohio State had yet to do all season defensively. Well, they did it today. But once again, that was bound to happen. So that's really not a huge deal. Will Howard, quarterback Will Howard, let's go back to him. Let's talk about the offense now. So Will Howard had a great game. However, this was the first game where he threw an interception. Yep, he ended up throwing a pick today. It was up the right sideline here. And essentially, there was just coverage all around. He even said after the game in an interview that you can check out on the Columbus Wired YouTube channel, Facebook page, or X account. But he said that basically the plan was that they had already practiced, that if everybody was covered, he was just going to grip it and rip it up the right sideline for Jeremiah Smith. And that's what he did. And we saw the end result. He ended up throwing his first interception of the season. And he also took his first sack. Yeah, took his first sack today too, which was an 11-yarder midway through the third quarter on 3rd and 20. It was already 3rd and 20, and then he took an 11-yard sack. And suffice it to say, facing 4th and 39, Ohio State punted at that point. Offensively, though, a couple of good nuggets. Judkins, like I said, what was that? 14 carries, 173 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Well, one of them, folks, was an 86-yarder. You have got to go back and look at this touchdown run. It is just on a simple sweep. He lines up to the right of Will Howard, takes the ball, and just finds the holes. I mean to tell you, the blocking was superb. On the edge, the wide receivers blocked. The offensive line created a valley for him to run through, and he just, right through the hole, right up the middle. And I mean to tell you, he was gone. And just at the very end, right there, in that corner, right there, is where he was tripped up at the last second. However, he made it count. And he got into the end zone for an 86-yard touchdown, which now, which now is tied for 3rd longest run ever in OSU history. Regardless of for a touchdown or not, that 86-yarder ties J.T. Barrett's 86-yard touchdown run that Barrett had 10 years ago this season, that 2014 National Championship winning season, when J.T. had an 86-yard touchdown run at Minnesota. And it is 1 yard shy of Eddie George's 87-yard touchdown run that Eddie had at Wisconsin in 1995. And then it was 2 yards shy of the longest run ever in OSU history, which came from Morris Bradshaw. How many of y'all remember good old Morris Bradshaw? I certainly don't, because it happened in 1971. And I'll be honest with you folks, I apologize. I did not get exactly who that run came against, but some of you out there may remember. Yeah, I remember that 88-yard run by old Morris, and that was a thing of beauty. Well, I wasn't around in 71, but that's when it happened. That's the longest ever. But Quinshon now the owner of the third longest run in OSU history. So how about that? And it was also the longest run of his collegiate career. And if I didn't say this earlier, I think I did, but I'm going to reiterate. The 100-yard game today by Emeka, it was his second of his career, the first time in the Peach Bowl against Georgia. We all know how that ended, but today, a whole different result. So hats off to you too, Mech, for having a great game. We saw Devin Brown for a little bit. In fact, let me see what his stats were in this game. Quickly, I will go. He was 2 of 6 for 14 yards. That was Devin. We didn't see Julian Sain. We really didn't see a whole lot of the backups like we saw against Western Michigan. I think Ryan Day, he just kind of felt like this was kind of one of those weird games, even though they had a nice solid lead. I mean, 3-touchdown lead going into like the fourth quarter, but in today's day and age, style points kind of matter. If we don't beat a team by 78 points, you suck, that kind of thing. So he felt that he needed to keep some of the starters into the fourth quarter. But nonetheless, Buckeyes still with a big win today. Once again, final score 49-14 over the Marshall Thundering Herd. That's been your Columbus Wired postgame recap. My goodness, I've gone over 16 minutes. It's time to shut up, get home, and let everybody enjoy the rest of the evening. And indeed, until the next time we talk, everybody, take care, and I'll see you then.